forget that.
It's in my pocket.
Oh, you remember? Okay. Today, I have two guests joining me for the community planning conversation, Scott Dossett and Tyler Fitch. Both are very active in the historic East Urbana Neighborhood Association, and we're going to focus particularly on the collaborative work that they are doing with the Urbana Park District to rehabilitate Victory Park, but we'll also talk about how the Neighborhood Association came to be and some of the history about the association. Scott and Tyler, thank you so much for coming today and joining me. Before we get started on the Neighborhood Association and this wonderful park project, I'd just like to get a little information about both of you. Scott, where were you born and how did you happen to come and settle in Urbana?
I came here for a job in 1981 after being born in the southern part of Illinois, a little town called Bethalto, close to Alton, and did my college work at SIU at Carbondale and moved up here for a job that didn't quit until I retired late last year. So.
And you said at the Water Survey?
At the Illinois State Water Survey, yeah.
All right.
Right.
And Tyler?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you happen to end up in this area of Urbana?
Well, I was born in Carl Clinic many years ago. Not as many as him, but I moved. I grew up in Southern Illinois. Did not grow up here. Grew up in Southern Illinois, in Lawrenceville, Illinois, and eventually roundabout through Southern Illinois University myself.
Classmates?
Not quite. But Salukis.
Salukis through us through.
That's right. Ended up here for a job at the university, and now I work for the University of Illinois Foundation, actually, in a related capacity.
In that beautifully restored building.
Beautiful building.
Beautiful.
Oldest major building on campus.
A lovely building. It's a nice preservation job. Both of you are active in the historic East Urbana Neighborhood Association.
H.E.U.N.A. H.E.U.N.A. is what we call ourselves.
H.E.U.N.A. is what you call yourselves, but I also want to identify, Scott, that you are on the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Urbana.
Yes. When we were doing some work on brick sidewalk renovation, I made the mistake of going to an HPC meeting and complaining about their action and found myself on the commission. Certainly volunteer, but it's been a real good learning experience for me because it's not something that I was used to thinking a lot about. I like old houses and all that, and certainly value the parts of our neighborhood that have uniqueness in their structure. But it's given me a good opportunity to see how commissions work in Urbana, and we're actually short a commissioner right now.
Oh, okay. So applications can be turned in to the mayor.
And we'd actually like to have an architect. Standing Commissioner Bill Rose is just too busy to continue work with the commission, and really value his expertise in structure as well as aesthetic in structure and sort of like the nuts and bolts of houses. So.
And this has to be an Urbana resident.
An Urbana resident, that's
Okay.
right. And there's an application online, and certainly we'd like to get someone aboard. So.
Excellent. And just for our viewers, Bill Rose is at the Building Research Council, so he does have a terrific amount of expertise in the area that you just identified. Do you have another community role? I don't want to shortchange that. Any commission?
I serve on the Urbana Park District Advisory Committee, and that's it. Urbana Volleyball Boosters, parent rep.
Okay, well,
class.
those are very the latter is extremely important.
That's demanding.
Yeah. Tyler moved into our neighborhood just 4 years ago?
No, just
two or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're very, very happy to have him. He's really jumped in with both feet on a couple of the projects really near and dear to us, and has done a really good job. So thanks, Tyler.
Well, that actually leads into one of the aspects that I wanted to make certain that we talked about, and why is it you chose that area to move to? What are some of the sparkling points of East Urbana, and are some of those aspects apparent and developed because of this neighborhood association?
Well, I think the neighborhood association helps a lot, but it's got a lot of natural features that my wife, Mary Ann Downey, who's also active in the association, found attractive. And the way I found out about the neighborhood, I wasn't even really kind of aware of it. And we were looking for homes. We were married not long before we moved into the neighborhood, 2.5 years or so ago. And we're looking for houses, and I saw for sale by owner, and I went down the street, and I thought, I don't really like that house. But I was impressed as I drove down the street. It was winter. The trees were bare. There was snow on the ground. We have the old street lights, so the globes were shining, and it was like a Dickens kind of a postcard, you know. Well, then I took a left. I didn't really like the house, and turned up the street and saw the house. Right there it was, Fizbo. Didn't even know about it. My wife saw it. The owner and the seller walked us through it, and she was describing where she was going to put pieces of furniture, and I said, knock that off. We got to,
We have to negotiate.
yeah, we have to pretend like we don't like it, right? But we didn't. We loved it. It's our dream house, and the neighborhood is one of the, not the only, but one of the lowest neighborhoods in the Twin Cities that combines low crime and affordable housing. There are not that many neighborhoods anywhere that combine those two things. It's quiet, it's collegial, people walk around, people bike around, and people look out for each other. And so those are the things that attracted us, and hopefully they attract other people as well.
Well, that says a lot for it, but that leads me again into how did the association come to being? And while you're giving a little bit of the history, let me show the boundaries
Right.
of
Okay.
the association,
Okay.
and you talk about.
Right. Approximately 6 years ago in our neighborhood, there was a mistake on a foundation at the corner of Grove and Elm. By that I mean that the foundation was built too close to the sidewalk. Neighborhoods and zoning provisions apply what are called setback rules. And so we had a 15-foot mistake. And essentially what had happened, and something that's kind of pattern in our neighborhood, is that an older building, single family, not a historic building per se, but one that was probably carpenter built and on the affordable housing end of the scale, so 15 to 2,000 square feet or so. 1,500 to 2,000 square feet had been torn down, and a box was put in its place. And so in the process of the request for the variance for the foundation, we met with our council person at the time, Laura Huth, and city staff, Libby Tyler, and others, and started fomenting this whole idea about how to represent ourselves, because we know that we have a lot of other properties like this. There are a considerable number of rentals in the neighborhood, and particularly on Elm Street, East Elm Street, there have been a lot of these high quality, if not opulent homes torn down for buildings that just are nondescript from the sidewalk. So it's a flat face with no windows and no overhangs, and it really gives a barracks kind of feel to the neighborhood. In addition to that, once we started dealing with people in community development, we found out that there were opportunities for us to qualify for money, neighborhood organization grants, that actually would allow us to do press and to do printing and things like that. And so, before long, we had 20 or 25 people.
Here is the sign that as you drive by the park. First of all, why don't we tell folks where the park is in case they don't drive through East Urbana?
Everyone should drive through East Urbana often, but the park is it's difficult to locate, actually. It has a small bit of frontage on Main Street near Cottage Grove. and then it runs from there along Cottage Grove. There are a row of houses between it and Cottage Grove, ends at Green Street, and then comes back on Lynn Street.
And it's sort of L-shaped.
It is shaped like an L or a frying pan or a meat cleaver. Pick your metaphor. And it so the Main Street frontage, which is where people would most likely be driving, is actually elevated, and that is where the commemorative plaque will go.
Okay.
We found out the reason for the commemorative plaque, which was purchased with a pocket grant that Scott largely was able to secure for us.
And PACA is?
It's the Preservation and Conservation Association. We found that there were victory gardens in the area that is now the park during World War II.
I didn't know that.
The park was actually established in 1920. Probably the victory is reference to World War I. But during World War II, there were victory community gardens in that area. It was not in the park boundary at that time. It is currently part of the park boundary. So as we discussed the renovation plan that we met over a year and a half with the Park District, several H.E.U.N.A members were involved, Scott, myself, Chris Storr, our chair, Dennis Roberts, Mary Ann Downey.
Dennis Roberts, who's now
Dennis, Ward 5
Urbana.
councilman.
Right.
Mary Ann Downey, my wife, Alice Engelbretson, who was also important in the Brick Sidewalk Initiative, Jan Kemp, who has since moved to Danville, unfortunately for us. Danville's gain.
She runs a heck of a garage
She
sale.
runs a heck of a garage sale.
To raise some
She
funds.
raised the money for the welcome signs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also Chris Stouffer, who is got involved in the fundraising aspects of the park project.
Yeah.
So.
What happened at Victory Park, and I think it was a really neat
And
coincidence.
is this how the name came about, or does it have another history for the name of Victory?
Probably World War I.
Yeah, probably World War I. In fact, UPD is a little shaky on that. Their
UPD meaning
the Urbana Park District.
Okay.
But we got really lucky. Dennis Roberts first was interested in talking to UPD about possible improvements at Victory Park. And so he and I met the then new director there, Vicki Mays. This is probably 2 years ago now, and said, we're a neighborhood organization, we've got people, we want to make motion, we want to try to change, we want to improve our environment. Is there anything that we can do about Victory Park? Can we be part of a vision for Victory Park? It just so happened that at that time they were trying to make their decision about which park to do after King Park. They kind of do one park this year and one park next year, and by the time they get around, they've got to start all over again. They've got enough parks. And so we got ourselves on the top of their list by that effort to go and just have a simple meeting and just talk about what we wanted to do. It must have been just days later when Tyler came to his first meeting and we elected him chair of the Victory Park Committee, and we were off to the races.
Last meeting you'll go to.
Just show up. We will make you an officer.
I do want to say that we did invite Vicki Mays to join us today. Her schedule just was so full and with conflicts that she wasn't able to join us. So I hope the two of them do proper justice.
The Park District has been outstanding. As Scott mentioned, he and Dennis approached Vicki, and I think really our expectation was maybe to have the sign moved from one side of the park to the other and have some flowers planted around it. But they had just come off of, we're closing in on a tremendously successful effort in King Park. That really kind of, that's in the U.N.A, the United Citizens and Neighbors. In North Urbana, it's a neighborhood association.
Right, and just to remind everybody, Mike Doyle was on a recent program and talked about that neighborhood.
Right. Well, it was a very similar process where the neighbors and the Park District worked together, had an extremely successful build event, which we're going to talk about, we're going to have in a minute, and then a series of renovations that have awakened the neighborhood, beautified the park, and served as a model for the Park District now to take this to other neighborhoods.
Okay.
So they were ready when we came and had bigger plans than we thought, and we sat down and were able to develop a whole series of renovations that we'll discuss.
Okay, and I have...
You have a model of the master
I-
plan that we came up with,
Right, here it is.
which is somewhat small.
Well, we have a larger rendition. Let's see if this will help our viewers get up. Tyler will keep talking and we'll put up this larger vision of it.
Yes, if you've ever been to the park, or if you haven't, right now it's a park with a basketball court and a tennis court and an aging play set and a aging picnic shelter, a relatively small one.
Okay.
The improvements that we were mindful of budgetary concerns, and when we first began talking, one of the things that we did is we conducted a survey of neighborhood residents on two different main occasions. One was at our annual picnic. We drew, and the other one was at a neighborhood nights, a UPD event in the park. We drew up an instrument, got a series of responses, and this, in addition to our discussions, helped us decide what residents wanted out of the park. One of the things that was mentioned was that they like to come up to the park and walk, and so one of the features of the redesign is that there will be a new concrete walking path around the park.
Can you point those things out, Scott, while Tyler's
Yeah,
talking?
this is the kind of loop
Okay.
that will run through the park here, using actually some
Some
brand new
existing city
sidewalk
sidewalks.
done by Public Works.
And I think it would help the viewers if you sort of labeled the streets, or
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
look
yeah.
around.
This is
Okay.
Green Street right here.
Okay, and Main, where the sign will
And
be.
Main is over here on this side. This is why
There you go.
the other one. This is Main Street right here, and this is where the old play structure is. These are kind of getting a little bit ahead of Tyler here, but these are community garden spaces that are planned.
That exists today.
They
No,
do not
they do not
exist.
exist.
I see.
This is a brand new development, kind of
Okay.
in the Victory Garden theme.
Okay.
And then the loop walk, which is new. This is not currently present in the park here, to kind of connect with the Lynn and Green Street sides. And then this is the area where the playground build will be done.
And one of the MTD buses goes right by.
Yeah,
one
right
of
down.
the
Yeah, right down Green
sides,
Street. There's a new
doesn't it?
kiosk right here. Well, it's a bench.
Yeah.
We wanted a kiosk, we couldn't get
Well,
one.
we that was great. We simply asked the transit district if we could have a bench there, and within a week there was a bench there.
There was a bench there.
That's right.
Before you go too much further, I don't want to get too far away from, you said there were some budget concerns.
Well,
That
we
is-
just wanted to be mindful of not
Is
that
that
the resources were limited.
from the park district?
The park district is going to kick in at least $150,000 eventually, should all the renovations take place.
Okay.
That's the plan. In addition, there is going to be a grant application has been made for open space lands acquisition development
Should we put
grant.
this down now?
Yes. Okay.
An OSLAD grant, and also we're seeking some private funds, $20,000 to $40,000 worth of private funds. So
Okay.
total budget will be. I can't recall right now the size of the OSLAD grant. I think the total budget is going to be in the neighborhood of $300,000.
And what does OSLAD mean?
That was the Open Space Lands Acquisition Development Grant.
All right.
The Urbana Park District is very good about taking their budget and matching that to grants. Tim Bartlett and Vicki Mays run a real good job over there in terms of how to use our city assets. You know, the park district is a line on your property tax bill, not only as raw capital to buy, fuel for trucks, but to leverage those for grant funds. They've done this real successfully at Busey Woods and Meadowbrook Park all over town, and so that's what this OSLAD stuff will do.
So we're not leaving this, but it seems that a very good model planning model that you are conveying to other neighborhood associations is this potential of collaboration, and if you have some planning ideas, to go to the city or to the park district and talk about things.
Absolutely.
And your group has been able to move forward a couple of very significant projects.
Well, certainly we were the only neighborhood association to also actually author and submit our own comprehensive plan as the 2005 Urbana City Comprehensive Plan came into fruition and was voted by City Council. And I think we're going to be the first neighborhood to get a neighborhood plan out of community development to help us do some overlay zoning sorts of work and some things about conservation districts that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do had the organization not been working on these issues and sort of trying to meet with staff routinely and trying to make the connection to the bureaucracy.
Well, that we're going to talk about next, but I don't want us to leave
that's it.
Victory Park, because I do want you
Well,
to
Victory Park is
continue
part of
with
what
the-
Scott's talking about.
Right,
It's mentioned prominently in the neighborhood plan.
But it's a story about your upcoming work weekend.
That's right.
And
That's right.
we have, for folks to see the play equipment.
That's
I just
right.
drove by there today and I see the play equipment
One of
has been put up.
One of the issues that came up in the survey was that the park district already knew that the play equipment was, I forgot the terminology that they used, would need to be replaced soon. They were going to cycle it out anyway. Several mothers in the survey mentioned that the equipment now is very near to Main Street, and there's no barrier really between Main Street and the play structure. So they mentioned, wouldn't it be great if it was on the other side of the park? And so that's what we're doing. We're taking it from Main Street, moving it to the Green Street side, enlarging it, and having new equipment. The equipment was chosen at a H.E.U.N.A meeting, and then on Arbor Day, the city held its Arbor Day celebration in Victory Park. And children from,
Pull up the
if we can
PC.
pull up the web, we
If
have a
we pull up-
picture of
We
this.
have
Pull up
some
the
pictures,
computer.
so, okay.
This is Arbor Day in Victory Park, the Urbana official celebration. And these are children from Marilyn Queller Daycare Center, which is right across from the park.
So they use the park.
They used the park.
They used the park. They were here this day. They got to meet an owl. They got to help us plant a tree. And they got to select play equipment, help select play equipment. And here they are putting stickers on. There were, the park district had solicited bids. So there were some competing designs, some competing equipment. And the kids put stickers on the one that they liked. Between that and we did the same thing with as adults at a H.E.U.N.A meeting, and really that drove the park district to pick out the specific elements, which if you could toggle back to the model of the park.
To the park or the play equipment?
To the playground, I'm sorry, that's great. You can see it's going to have a new giant sliding apparatus. It's going to have a volcano, which is that little nodule up to the top left. Yes, it is. The kids had completely covered that with stickers, so that was a real winner.
Must.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a must.
And then there's going to be swings, and not pictured is an adult porch swing that's going to sit in one corner.
I was rather impressed when I was at your meeting and they talked about that, and why don't you talk about the thought behind why that was added?
Well, the thought to a convenient place for parents to sit and keep an eye on their children, and I thought it was a real creative idea rather than an old wooden bench or, you know.
It's a very creative, and as folks drive by that, it's in a very dominant space within the park.
Yeah,
It is.
It'll be. It's
It's-
easily
It's
recognizable.
redefining the features of the park, and yet preserving a lot of the open space. We had one of the other issues that people like open space was one of the issues in the survey that was mentioned. So we specifically talked with them about how to preserve as much of the open space as we could, and they did that. So we're real happy. And it's if you do get a chance to go by the park, if you know where it is, it's the structure is nearly it looks like it's nearly built now. We're going to have a community playground build day.
Okay.
September 30th, Saturday, September 30th.
And the time on that?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Okay.
9 a.m. It's a floating time. It was 8 a.m. by general consensus.
I think if you get there in the morning, you'll be able to help.
Well, the key ingredient is you go to the farmer's market.
You go to the farmer's market,
Lincoln Square,
right,
and then you just
absolutely.
walk
Yeah,
east
yeah,
and
yeah.
join you all at 9 o'clock.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
Yeah, if you can pull up the PC, I'm going to steal a little bit from Tyler here, because we're talking about, what the efficacy of these neighborhood associations are. Here we've got Councilman Roberts, and we've got Mayor Pressing, of course, getting ready to read her Arbor Day proclamation, which led to this small group setting. There's where the kids were voting. There's some people from the Queller, and they got to plant a tree. So, this outreach work has a lot of real fun aspects. And after the Arbor Day celebration, we actually took Mayor Pressing around to a half a dozen other places we valued in the neighborhood, and used that as an effort to kind of get her ear and to kind of brainstorm a little bit about what the other things are that we'd like to have happen, and make her a little more aware of our neighborhood. And so as we go forward with other planning efforts, you've got to build that kind of base. And I really think some neighbors getting together and doing things like putting together a logo and going to meetings and representing themselves really makes that happen. So.
We somehow skipped over how when your group was established, so people can have a measure of the amount of time of your existence and your success variables that you're talking about.
Well, our not-for-profit status, which was probably one of the first big projects we really had to work on, is about 5 years old. It's 5 years old this year.
So that's quite a number of accomplishments for a 5-year window of time.
Well, I think we've done pretty well. We could always use more volunteers, and certainly anyone who lives within the boundaries of H.E.U.N.A is asked to please participate, because, for example, it was Tyler coming forward with an interest in Victory Park. We leveraged a lot of his time and his commitment and skills to try to make this happen, really, after kind of getting the push started. And so if we all get involved, we can make really good things happen.
Well, and Victory Park, that build day on you said the 30th?
30th.
Saturday, September 30th.
30th, roughly 9 o'clock, starting. That it's broader than just your neighborhood, because other people, park service, other aspects of your communities, so having people from other parts
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
The Park
Urbana
District
are more than welcome to come.
Absolutely.
The Park District is really going to have a communications push. WDWS has offered free advertising and is going to be pushing the build day. Orthopedic Associates of Illinois is leading the private fundraising effort, and there are a number of business sponsors that are going to be participating, and we expect that there will be people from all over Urbana, maybe some Champagnians.
We might cross the line.
You might cross the Mason-Dixon line. So the King Park build, apparently there were 100 people or so.
Okay.
So the Park District is expecting roughly a similar type of a crowd. There will be food provided, water, there will be music, and just good, clean work.
Well, and a wonderful sense of closure on the project at the end of the day.
Well, this is